Do you guys anticipate? It seemed as if they were thinking, we know the Eagles, if they were in a situation like this in offense, would go for it, and we've got to keep up a little bit. Do you guys anticipate that at all happening? And if so, how does a defense adjust to that, if there is adjusting for it?
No, I think every team's different. If they put the offense out there, we have a defensive play or defense ready to be called. A lot of teams go for it on 4th and goal, particularly in there tight, or an end-of-game situation where they had to go for it. But, we saw it last year from Giants. I think it's pretty common all around the league, particularly when it's down in there inside the 1-yard line like that.
How would you guys 48 points captures your attention? What stood out the most about what Tampa Bay did?
Yeah, they made a lot of big plays. Deshaun Jackson down the field, Evans, tight end, a lot of big plays. Fitzpatrick's been around for a long time. He got hot, and, New Orleans had a hard time getting him stopped. It was eye-opening to watch it for sure.
What does it mean to get back Nigel Bradham this week?
He's an important part of our defense. We were able to cover up some things in his absence. We've had to do that for a lot of different situations with different players, but I'm on the record for how much he means to us, and it'll be good to get him back for sure.
With regard to the big plays, does it make it more difficult that the two guys, Jackson and Evans, both make big plays down the field, but they do it in such different ways, one being a speed guy and one being a big guy?
Yeah, everybody has their own little personality, so to speak, but Deshaun Jackson's always been a guy that can take the top off the defense. We played him in a game 2 years ago, and he made a lot of big plays like that, and it took us a while to get adjusted to it. And then a guy like Evans, even if he's covered, he can still be open. He's a very physical player. You have to be physical with him, so there certainly is two different styles of player. They use him in different ways also.
Fletcher never really came out of the game except for a few plays. Was that kind of by design, and will we see a lot more of that this year, you think?
Well, we're down a little bit in numbers at defensive tackle, and it would have been Hector's first ever play, and we wanted to sort of limit him a little bit, let him get his feet wet, so to speak, before we give him a bigger role. So, and I think it helped us a little bit that rain came, and it cooled it off a little bit. Early on, we played a lot of snaps. Then we started getting some stops, and I think that helped also because Fletcher was able to get some rest on the sideline. It's probably not ideal, but it's what we had to do to win the game, and that's what we did.
Sidney Jones did in his first game in the slot.
I think just defense in general, we did enough to win. We were sloppy in some areas. I think we had sloppy plays throughout the defense, secondary, linebackers and defensive line. But we did enough to win, and I'd probably put Sid in there also. He made a couple plays that we can do a little bit better. I mean, that's sort of where everybody is right now, even though, there's probably 16 teams that are going to the Super Bowl and 16 teams that might not win a game. I mean, that's just, the Tuesday after the opener, that's just how everybody feels. But, when it's all said and done, the players that are successful over the course of the season, the offenses and defenses that are successful, and the teams that are successful over the course of the season are the ones that correct mistakes, that make adjustments, and continue to improve over the course of the season. And, I think, we all need to do that, and, Sid also. But did some nice things. I had a couple nice tackles also. Made a tackle for a loss. Those are things that it's not just covering guys. Those are things he needs to be able to do.
How did Jordan Hicks look? You haven't had Knox and Jordan together for a long time. Does that make things easier for you? Have you learned something about other guys because of all the moving parts over that time?
Yeah, I think there is a silver lining to the fact that those guys haven't been on the field. We've had to do a lot of different things and cover a lot of bases, and it's given us a little bit more, a few more pitches, I guess you'd say. Use my baseball analogy. What was it? Frank Tanana. man, I'll take you back. Frank Tanana he could throw some heat, and he hurt his shoulder or his elbow or something, and he became a soft toss specialist, played forever, and it was all about control and things like that. So I think, boy, that's a really bad analogy, but when you are lacking something, it does force you to try to find another way to do it, but there's nothing like having that fastball.
How did Jordan look coming back from the Achilles?
Yeah, I mean, he looked a lot like he always has. I thought one of the biggest plays in the game was his sack. You know, it wasn't just getting the sack, but just the way he did it. It was such a physical play. It really helped our defense, you know, sort of catch on fire. I've said a lot of times that Nigel Bradham has played that role for us and has been a heart and soul of our defense. Well, Jordan was able to give us that same kind of spark, and I thought it was a key part of the game. It was such a physical play.
In these press conferences, you keep emphasizing scoring defense. What makes your red zone defense as effective as it is?
I don't know. I mean, guys understand what to do. We have good players at 3 levels of the defense. We can rush without blitzing. Of those last 5 plays, there wasn't any blitz in those, even though we did blitz early in the game, created a turnover, but we were getting such good pressure that, you know, we didn't need the blitz. So I think that, you know, when you can blitz on your own terms, you're at an advantage. And I think that's, you know, and it's frustrating if you're not getting pressure and you have to blitz, it can put you in a bad spot. But that really hasn't happened to us. And I think probably the biggest thing is, you know, there was no panic in our players. You know, they knew what to expect. You know, they went out and did it, and even after getting the penalty and getting another spot, there was no frustration from the players. There was no, you know, there was no sense of panic. They went out and did their job, and we were able to get the win.
You guys had a lot of different personnel groupings and some new faces. How was sort of getting lined up pre-snap and the communication? How would you assess that?
Yeah, you know, it was a tough time to do that, being a home game and the crowd being juiced the way that it was, and you know, and Atlanta using a lot of different personnel groups of their own, but we were able to get through it, and you know, it gives us some good options going forward.
Jim, Brandon Graham had so little work in the spring and the summer, and yet he looks 100%. Does he look that way to you?
Yeah, I mean, he sort of always looks the same. You know, we violated his pitch count just a little bit. Again, he was fresh. We kept having communication with him. Hey, I'm good. You know, again, maybe it helped that it wasn't 96 degrees, 100 heat index and everything else, the way that that thing was potentially playing out. But he was one of those guys that at the end of that game was fresh. I mean, we rotated a lot of defensive ends. If you look at their snap numbers, we had, you know, we had about 4 guys in there that all were real similar as far as snap numbers, and it showed at the end of that game. You know, we kept rolling fresh guys out there, and I think that was probably the biggest thing. You know, those guys were just really bringing it, and they were able to do that because they were fresh. But he was able to make it through. I don't think it's ever ideal that you miss, you know, 95% of training camp or whatever it was. But he's a veteran player. He's been through a lot of those wars before, and you know, he was able to pick things up pretty quickly. I think we haven't seen, you know, I think there's more left to be seen from Brandon also, which is a good sign.
They have a couple of tight ends that can catch the ball down the field. How do you think you guys match up against that?
Well, we'll see on Sunday for sure, but we talk about Evans being a big guy with a big catch radius. You know, Howard's the same guy. You know, all their tight ends are huge, 6'6" guys, and gives the quarterback a big strike zone to be able to throw it to. And you got to be careful in man-to-man coverage of keeping good vision on the quarterback as well as seeing your player, because the quarterback has such a big area that he can throw a guy open, and that means, I mean, that's a lot with their tight ends.
Rasul had just 2 snaps, but he picks up an interception. I know that's his role right now, but how difficult is that to stay engaged and be able to step out there and late in the game after not playing and make a play?
Yeah, that was his job. You know, Darby went down for a couple plays, and, you know, I mean, whether you're a defensive lineman that's rotating through, or you got to go step in for a guy that's been injured, or a shoelace that's broken, or somebody's fixing their helmet, you got to go in and you got to perform. And that was a key part of the game. Rasul's got a nose for the football and was able to come up with that. We blitzed on that play. Quarterback had to throw it a little quicker than he wanted to. And a little bit like I said the question before, Rasul had good vision on the quarterback, was able to make that.
You guys were telling us yesterday that their favorite thing about you is that you put a lot of trust in them versus, overly coaching them up. Do you value that about the relationship you have with them? Can you expand on that a little
Well,
bit?
it's an easy group to trust. First of all, they're good players. Second of all, they work extremely hard. They're very conscientious. They practice hard. They play well as a team. I think that, when you put all those things together, it does make it easy to trust. But that stuff doesn't happen by accident. There's a lot of hard work from coaching staff to the players that go into, and I'll take it even one step further. It's hard work from the players. It's hard work from the coaching staff. It's hard work from the scouting staff. I mean, it just doesn't happen by accident that you get good players and have some depth and things like that. But all those things together, make it easy to trust that group.
The blitz you called on Rasul's interception, Jim, how much of it was the timing and you just felt the time was right for it, and how much was the fact that Darby was out for a couple of plays and the personnel you had in there?
Yeah, I didn't even take into consideration that Darby wasn't in there. We're trying to stop the offense, and a little bit like the previous question, we trust everybody when they go in that they can accomplish that. If you have to jury rig your defense every time, or offense anytime somebody steps out, I don't think that's a great spot to be in. It doesn't show trust in your players. But we had blitzed a little bit in that game, particularly out of that formation defensively. But we brought a little different blitz, try to speed the quarterback up and get it out of his hand a little bit quicker. And sometimes that can be the best thing in coverage, get the ball out of the quarterback's hand a little bit quicker.
Derek Barnett had a couple offsides penalties that negated a couple sacks. Wasn't an issue for him last year, but it was in college. What's the message to him?
Yeah, offside once and aligned offside another. That's just something he has to continue to detail. If we got to back him up just a little bit, I mean, he's one of those guys that can get such a good jump and puts a lot of pressure on offensive tackles. But if he's got to be back about 6 inches, so that doesn't happen, that's something we'll have to look at. We can't afford to take sacks off of the board. We had a big third down stop. Now, one of them helped us because we ended up getting the interception, so it actually. Him being offsides actually helped us, probably get 3 points or take 3 points off the board. I mean, that's sort of a stupid thing to say because you can never think that a penalty is a good thing, But he did rush. I say you made up for it, but I think the thing you saw from Derek in that game is he was very physical in that game. And he was one of those guys at the end of the game that was fresh and was just bringing it. And we were collapsing the pocket. And, a couple of those throws, the quarterback could barely even get it off. And he was on the clock. He didn't want to take a sack and have the clock run out. Didn't want to throw an interception, and put the quarterback in a little bit of a bind. And Derek was a big part of that. Just got to clean up. And we had a few. I mean, Jordan Hicks gets the illegal contact. He sort of stepped into the guy a little bit. Those things just can't happen. You can't. It takes years off the defense coordinator's life when they get 5 shots from the, in first and goal at the end of a game like that.
The rotation of the ends. A lot of coaches around this league talk about rotating the defensive line. You look at the numbers after the game; they're not necessarily there. How much discipline does that take as a coach to commit to that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it takes unselfish players, and I think, I like where we are that way. Our front judges themselves on the entire group, not individual accomplishment. And you see that on the field. Fletch makes a sack, and they're all excited about it because they all played a part in it. So I think you need to have unselfish players. it just needs to be stressed. And I think when you show plays like those last 5 plays in the game, when they were fresh and they were coming, and it didn't matter who was in the game, I think that that goes a long way to selling those kind of things. It's good for not just one game, but over the course of the season. I think our players recognize that. And I think it also goes to another theme of what we've been talking about. You have to trust the guy that he can go in and make those plays. And, you know, if you want to rotate players, you need to have players that can be on the field. And you can't say, well, this guy can't be out there in this situation or this situation or this situation or this situation, and then he doesn't play very many snaps in the game. So we have trust in those players. They work hard together. They realize it's about the group. It's not about them individually. And you know, that's where the production counts.
Jim, you mentioned blitzing on your own terms. You had a sack near the end there, right before those last 5 plays. Was that one of those examples where you had 6 guys in coverage for 4 receivers? You still had a 5th?
Oh yeah, no, that really wasn't even a blitz. No, that's just that was just a man-to-man situation, and linebacker was going up and mugging his guy. But sometimes we have stuff that might look like a blitz, but we really don't consider it a blitz. I mean, the offense considered it a blitz, but that was more just a man-to-man coverage.
Okay.
Sorry.
Mike, we were talking to Mike Wallace yesterday and about the, you know, maybe the lack of sharpness in the offense, at least early. He said it didn't seem to be too concerned that it's going to happen eventually with more reps with Nick and whoever else. You kind of feel the same way, and is it getting better that way in practice?
Well, I mean, obviously we want to improve, and I think that we will. We've got veteran guys here that know the expectation level, and we need to improve our execution. And we you know, there's a lot of things that we can get better at, and I'm confident that we'll get back to work here and we get on the grass tomorrow and start that process.
Mike, you didn't use 12 personnel very much. I think 11 plays maybe. How much of that was what you were facing from them defensively, and how much was you just trying to bring Dallas along at a slow pace?
I think it just kind of happened that way. I don't know that there's a particular plan to limit his reps. I mean, we feel very confident what Dallas is going to do and how it'll produce for us as the year goes on. And targeted Dallas, I think, 3 times in the game, and he had the 1 catch. So you know, we think we'll get a lot of production out of him.
Did you get much production from your wide receivers down the field? What were some of the issues there? Was it just defensive, what they were doing to you guys, or was it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there was any real issue. We had some, you know, we had some chances down the field, and we didn't capitalize on those chances. And you know, Atlanta's got a lot of talent over there. They've got excellent defensive backs, and they made some plays on the football too, which kept the production down. And we know that we got to create more explosive plays and push the ball down the field.
Like, have you found, with, you know, like calling Philly on the 3rd down play and the propensity you guys have for going for it on 4th down, dating back the last couple of years, have you guys picked up on opponents doing similar things against you to keep up? Have you found that and noticed that, okay, if the Eagles are going to run a trick play on third down, if they're going to go for it on fourth down in this situation, we probably have to, too, to kind of match the aggressiveness that you guys are playing with?
I'm not paying much attention to what the other teams are doing on offense, so it would be hard for me to speak about what they're doing. I know that we want to be as aggressive as we can in terms of our play calling and the way that we want to attack our opponents each and every week. So if that, induces some sort of response from the opponent, then I guess that's the way it is. But, we just try to capitalize on situations that we see in our film study, and Philly was one of those examples.
How does the defenses play you differently with Alshon out of the lineup?
I think it's too early to say that right now. With one game, I don't know if there's enough of a sample size to be able to accurately describe that. But I mean, Alshon's a big part of what we do, and we know that defenses have to account for him. So, when he's out there, there's certainly plays that we know that he's made in the past for us that we got to find other guys to make.
I don't expect you to tell us who the quarterback is. You probably pass along to Doug, but do you guys know at this point who's it going to be, and have you started game planning towards that quarterback?
Yeah, I think that we feel pretty confident, and Coach will make that announcement, I guess maybe in the next day or so. But, yeah, we're already on to the game plan and moving forward with that at this point in time in the week.
As far as the committee approach at running back, not a lot of Jay early, a lot of Jay late. Was that a game plan thing, or is that kind of a field thing? Is the game?
I think again that was one of those things that just happened organically. It wasn't something we set out to do. We didn't have a lot of snaps in the first half. Weren't as productive as we wanted to be, and that limited a lot of guys' playing time in the first half in particular. And then we really got the running game going in the fourth quarter, and Jay was a big part of that. I thought he ran really well, and he looked strong around the football and made some good plays. Guys were bouncing off of him and showed good vision. So, he'll continue to be a big part of what we're doing in the run game.
Worried about this foot thing with him, though? It seems like there was some. I know Doug said that he didn't give him a lot of carries early because he wasn't sure about it or something.
Well, I think he missed. I don't know the exact number of days, but he missed some time there. So his conditioning, anytime you have a lower body injury, it's hard to keep your conditioning where you'd like it to be. So I think that was something that was factored in.
What was from a scheme standpoint, how tough is it to get something going deep against what Atlanta plays, that mostly a cover three?
Yeah, they do a great job of trying to make you go the long, hard way, and that's what they were able to do. Had we not gotten the penalty there when we got inside the 10-yard line, we had an opportunity to score 3 touchdowns in the game, and on those drives. So they just make it really difficult to get up and over the top of you, and that's why a lot of people are running this system in the league right now, and they got good players, a lot of speed, and they can put pressure on the quarterback, and they got really good corners. So they're in a playoff team.
What was the benefit of playing DeAndre inside and moving Nelson outside instead of, I guess, giving Shelton more run?
We moved him around a little bit. Nelson played both spots. He played in the slot and he played outside. We're just trying to put the best guys out there that we can. That's all we're trying to do.
Can you comment on the performance and the impact from J.C. Peters, who hadn't played since Week 7 last year, didn't play in the preseason, and then is out there the whole game at left tackle?
Pretty amazing that a guy could miss all that time and step right back into one of the premier positions in the National Football League like JP did for us. And we know he's just going to keep getting better week in and week out now that the games have started, and he gets back out there and knocks a little bit of the rust off. But for Week 1, man, he played really well.
When you guys use that the kind of jet sweep motion like you did on Corey's run, what effect does that have on defenses, or what are kind of the advantages of that?
Well, it can distort the run fits for the linebackers, if they take their eye off the ball, so to speak, for even a split second, and they're late reacting, it allows our linemen to get up on them and try to create those vertical voids that we're looking for.
What have you seen out of their defensive line? It's pretty much not completely remade, but they add a lot of new faces this offseason.
Yeah, they have. They really invested heavily in the defensive line. Obviously, it's all built around Gerald McCoy, and he's a guy that can wreck the game. So somebody that we got to pay special attention to. But adding guys like JPP and Vinny and Bo, who we know really well, they've really bolstered that unit and paid dividends for him last week.
In Nick's case, what do you do to get him going early? He talks often about being a rhythm quarterback, but how do you establish that rhythm?
I think just try to find them easy completions. Not unlike a lot of quarterbacks, you like to get in the flow of the game, get a completion, or use a basketball analogy. Find a nice, easy open shot or a layup. Kind of find your rhythm early and get going. And so, we got to do a good job of that and trying to present them those kind of opportunities early so you can get in the flow of the game.
Is it something as a play caller, Doug, and you put the game plan together, make a concerted effort to do that?
Absolutely. I think all play callers and offensive coaches in general are trying to find those kind of plays early in the game, and usually you kind of that becomes apparent throughout the week of practice. Hey, we thought this would be a good scheme against them, and it showed up nicely, and ball's coming out in rhythm, so that would be something to open the game with.
Some quarterbacks, when they win ugly, and they do it a lot, they're called gamers. Is there something to that, guys? Maybe they're struggling, they don't have their best game, but still find a way to win a game.
Absolutely. I learned a long time ago from Coach Parcells. He said that the number one job of the quarterback is to bring his team home a winner. And Nick's found a way to do that. He's played really, really well, and there's been other times where he hadn't played as well or up to that level, but still found a way to get his team home a winner. And really in the National Football League, that's the number one thing he's got to do. So as long as he continues to do that, we can improve on some of the other things.
What do you like about the unbalanced looks where you had Lane and JP next to each other?
Well, there's a lot of strength and at the point of attack between those two guys, and it's just something that the defenses need to prepare for each and every week. And it's kind of a way for us to dictate how they're going to align, and Coach Stalin does a great job of that every week.
It was an uncharacteristic game for Zach Ertz as far as drops. Why was that? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he had a couple that he usually makes, and like you said, it's uncharacteristic, and we're going to keep feeding him. So nothing's going to change there. Zach's a heck of a ball player, and we know that he's going to make more plays than he's going to miss. So just one of those things. Chalk it up maybe to opening night. I don't know. But we got absolute confidence in Zach, and he's a huge part of what we do here.
Isaac has kind of grown into that role, it seems like, that extra blocker a lot of times. Has he really done that?
Did you say Isaac?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been talking about Isaac and the kind of training camp that he's had for a number of weeks now. I mean, he's got a tremendous amount of versatility to be able to play center, guard, tackle, and then, like you said, even go out and play some of that big tight end. He's a heck of an athlete, and his confidence, you can just see it soaring right now. Really feels good about where he's at, and his understanding of our scheme and what we're getting done, and communicating that, and being vocal. I think playing center throughout training camps really helped him with that. And so with his versatility, it gives us a lot of flexibility up front.
You mentioned Tampa Bay's defensive line, where I guess Jeff did. What else stands out about their defense when you watch them?
Yeah, I mean, their linebackers obviously, really set the tone there with Quan Alexander and Levante David, guys that have played a lot of good football over the last several years. I've recruited Quan Alexander out of high school, so have followed him for a long time. And, in their secondary, they've added some pieces there. I know they're hoping to get Brent Grimes back, and, of course, Vernon Hargraves out there on the perimeter at corner. Both those guys are really good corner cover guys. So they got team speed, a lot like Atlanta. And like we've talked about here today, I mean, their defensive line, they've invested, and they put some pressure on the quarterback and create those kind of matchups. So we've got our work cut out for us.
You're coming off a game that sort of Tampa Bay was a shootout, gave up a lot of points, a lot of yards. Is that difficult because that's not them as a defense? You got to explain that to your guys.
I don't know that I understand the question.
Obviously they're playing Drew Brees. They lost the shootout. They gave up a lot of points.
Right.
But you mentioned the talent they had. Obviously that's the game film you're looking at this week. That's not indicative of what they usually are.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you face Drew Brees and that crowd, that tends to happen sometimes to some defenses. They have talent, but we know it's week to week in this league. And you got to go out and prove it every week, and not necessarily what happened last week is a great predictor of the way it's going to go this week. So we got to go out and take care of ourselves. We got to worry about what we need to do better, execute what we want to get done, execute our game plan, and go out there and try to attack them. They got a lot of talent, and it'll be a tough place to play down there on Sunday.
You have 3 new wide receivers on the practice squad. I know, during the week they'll be running the Bucs plays or whatever. How do you get them to the point where they can, if you ever need one of them on the 53, that they actually know your offense and can work with your quarterbacks.
Right. They have to invest time, early in the morning or later in the evenings with our coaches, our receiver coaches, Coach Brew and Coach Walsh, trying to get caught up on the playbook.
How long does that take, you think?
Everybody's a little bit different, I guess. It's a little bit easier during the season when, you really can focus on individual game plans as opposed to coming in during training camp when the whole offense is in. So, from that standpoint, it narrows the focus.
Thanks, Coach.
Right. Thanks, guys.